Her ass so mad and irritated because she got to go to work the next day and she ain't feeling me anyway. And she like, you just ate too much of that stuff. Go to bed. Go to sleep. I'm like, go to sleep? Do you not know the demons are after me? Suddenly, we were in demand everywhere. LaBelle was hotter than Pot's dinners. The sweethearts of the Apollo became the darlings of the Big Apple. Just a month after we released Nightbirds, LaBelle made history. On October 6, 1974, we played the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center. The first time a black vocal group had ever appeared at the historic New York City venue. Vicky went all out to make the Sunday evening show an affair to remember. I, for one, will never forget it, and I don't think anyone in the audience will either. At 8 p.m., when the house lights went down and the chandeliers were raised into the Met's high ceiling, Sarah, Nona, and I gave the sellout crowd a night to remember. Butterfly McQueen introduced us, and the cheers of the crowd told us they were ready to party. We divided the show into 2 acts. Act 1, which we called Prelude in Silver, opened with us singing Space Children from our new epic album. And thanks to Larry Legaspi, we looked every bit the part. Nona wore a tight silver spacesuit with platform boots. Sarah had on a loose silver gown with a matching silver hat. I had spray painted my hair with streaks of silver to complement my metallic silver leggings. We sang to the cheering crowd as we opened the show. That night, we didn't just sing the last song of Act 2. Can I speak to you before you go to Hollywood? We performed it as a mini play. By the time we reached the 15-minute encore, what can I do for you? I was pumped. I ran out into the audience, touching, hugging, and shaking hands. After the performance, Epic Records hosted a party for us at the Grand Tier. I had never felt closer to Sarah and Nona or more excited about our career. When the reviews came out the next day, we were the new divas of the music world. LaBelle could do no wrong. As Rolling Stones magazine put it, LaBelle owns New York. Almost a year to the day after I was flying high with LaBelle at the Met, I had to deal with what at that point was the most painful thing I had ever faced. October 1975 was one of the darkest periods of my life. Late 1972, Vivian was diagnosed with lung cancer. We were all terrified of what it might mean. As you know, as she said in the beginning of the book, her sister, matter of fact, all of her sisters died from cancer, some form of another. Vivian was so brave, and she wanted the rest of us to face her illness with courage too. She didn't feel sorry for herself, but she didn't want people to pretend she wasn't sick either. She wanted her family to come to grips with the fact that she had cancer. She wanted us to use the C word. She never let us soft pedal the situation. She fought with all her might, but the cancer was just too much for her. 4 days after my sister's heart stopped beating, we held her funeral at our family's church, Beulah Baptist, the church where she was baptized and the church where she came to hear me sing. Chubby was beyond grief. If I ever needed an escape from the things that were going on in my life, it was after we buried Vivian. For a long while after she died, I was numb. To make matters worse, things between Armstead and me were strange. The constant separation, not to mention that whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle that surrounded LaBelle was beginning to take its toll on my man. And Armstead was doing everything he could to make me see it. But he knows what he was feeling better than I do. So I'll let him tell you what he was going through. This is exactly what Armstead said, And let me say this, it takes a mature person to be able to acknowledge this, what I'm about to read, okay? This is something I'm not proud of at all, says Armstead. But it's real. It happened because Pat went back to work when Zuri was so young. Not even 3 months old, he came to see me as his primary caretaker. When I got off work, I would pick him up from my sister's house in my Hornet station wagon, and it would be just the two of us. Our bond became incredibly strong, and I'm ashamed to say I used it against Pat. If, for instance, Zuri fell down when we were both there, Pat would hold her arms out towards him, and he would run right past her to me. And I did everything I could to keep that going. Not because I wanted my son to love me more, but because I wanted Pat to realize what her absence was doing to all of us. This was precious time in Zuri's life. Time we could never get back. Zuri was only going to say his first words and take his first steps once. And I thought Pat should be there, but I didn't want to say it. I wanted her to see it. Pause. This is where I get kind of annoyed because I want to dummy chop her baby father / husband, ex-husband in the neck. But you knew what she was when you married her. You knew what she was when you shot up the club. What did you think? Did you think that she was going to stop being her? Fuck no. And Dinah Ross took her kids with her. Damn all that. I'm going to be a mammy on or off the road. She didn't have to compromise with 2 other girls because they were long gone. Now she's just Dinah Ross. She does not have to answer to the Supremes anymore. But Patti LaBelle wasn't that girl because Patti LaBelle, still being a part of LaBelle, she still had to deal with Sarah, Nona, and that other lady, Vicky. Out on the road, things weren't much better. In the 70s, drugs were everywhere, especially in the music business. Dope was so much a part of the rock and roll culture that at our concerts, people in the audience used to toss all kinds of drugs up on stage. People have always assumed I got high. I never assumed you got high, Patti. I never thought that you got high. Never. Nothing in my soul made me think that you got high. Now that motherfucking Nona, that's something different. People have always assumed I got high. That there is no way I could give those high energy performances unless I was on something. I don't think so. You could have just drank one of them coffees or one of them things that the kids be drinking. That be having them tweaking. What's that shit called? Monster? Was it Red Bulls? You could have been doing one of them, or just drink you a heavy, hefty cup of Sanka. There is no way I could give those high energy performances unless I was on something. Music has always been the only high I needed, and so I would pick up all that dope, the pills, the powders, and the funny cigarettes, and throw it all back. This drove a lot of folks around us crazy. If I didn't want the stuff, I was told on more than one occasion by more than one person, the least I could do was pass it on to those who did. Hell no. Hell no. No, answer no. Hell no. Why would I do that? If I didn't want the stuff, I was told on more than one occasion by more than one person. The least I could do was pass it on to those who did. Wait a minute, pause. No, if you're throwing it on stage, hold on. If the audience is throwing it on stage and you want me to pass it on to someone who did, the people who throwing it on stage is the audience. So I kick the shit back into the audience. They do it. They do it because they threw it up on stage. I mean, what's the problem? Girl, go away from me. There were plenty of people who did, and plenty of people who still wanted me to want it too. Once when I fell to my knees on stage at New York's Rock Palace, the Palladium, an audience member shoved amyl nitrate into my nose. The hell is that? Is that a popper? Why the hell is popper synonymous with some of the books we read? Luckily, I was able to back off in a hurry, missing the kick without missing the note. Another time we were in the studio in LA recording Moonshadow, and I was tired. My head was hurting and I just couldn't seem to get my rhythm. Somebody passed me a pill and said, "Try this. It will make you feel better." I thought nothing of it, assuming it was just some extra strength pain reliever. It turned out to be mescaline, and it was a trip. What the fuck is mescaline? Why do I not know what drugs are? I used to be a probation officer, for God's sake. Why do I not know this stuff? It turned out to be mescaline, and it was a trip. A very bad one. Pause. Remember that time I told y'all that my wife almost let me die in a bed next to her? And it was because I was blowing her, because I had went on a bad trip. I took like a Armstead because I had, that's what it was. I took a Armstead because y'all know I'm a migraine sufferer, right? But for some reason now in my life, but now that I understand what triggers my migraines, they're not as bad as they used to be, or they don't come as frequent as they used to. Anyway, child. So I had took an Armstead, right? And I had ate a cookie because, and y'all know I used to do cookies. I don't do them no more because I have my baby Lulu now. And I don't want to be high if just in case something happened to my baby while I'm high. Anything could happen. You know, he could eat some shit and I'd be stuck in Oz or Wonderland or something. Child, I was in the bed next to her and I had ate a cookie. And I knew I had ate more than I should have, because my head was hurting so bad. I just needed it to just stop. And maybe that marijuana cookie could have helped me to, to calm it. I thought that it would help it. Girl, that shit did not help. I went on such a bad trip. That's just crazy. And I was laying in the bed next to a nurse. Baby, I don't think it's good. It's not happening. It's bad, baby. It's bad. I am tripping. My brain is tripping. It's something not right, baby. I'm seeing crazy. Her ass so mad and irritated because she got to go to work the next day and she ain't feeling me anyway. And she like, "You just ate too much of that stuff. Go to bed. Go to sleep." I'm like, go to sleep? Do you not know the demons are after me? It was so bad, y'all. It was so hard for me not to get up and start screaming all over the earth. Like my body was tripping and my brain was tripping, but I was screaming. Oh my God, it was so bad. And I don't want to do drugs no more. I don't want to do, fuck them drugs. I don't want to do that stuff no more. You remember trips. You remember bad trips. I felt like I was coming out of my body. Yup, that's just how you feel when you be on a bad trip, girl. It feels like your brain comes out of your head and then just comes around and look you in the face and turns into like an episode of Metalopticus. Remember that cartoon that came on Adult Swim, Metalopticus? I was coming out of my body. It took me a long time to calm myself down enough to finish the session. If you listen closely to that cut, you'll hear me say, "It took me a while, but I think I'm finally there." Now you know why. That was my first and last experience with drugs. A bad trip will do that to you. You hear me? I don't like drugs. Drugs is bad. They not for me. They're not for me. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm not trying to imply I was some kind of angel. I wasn't. Far from it. While I didn't do dope, I drank a lot of booze. So did Armstead. For a while he was smoking reefer too. Sometimes we would drink until we got so drunk we were sick. I think part of it was trying to forget our problems, and part of it was trying to keep up with the Joneses. People around us were doing so much more mescaline, cocaine, acid that we drank to be a part of the crowd. Stupid, huh? Tanqueray and orange juice was my drink until I graduated to Cavassier. I was into beer and wine too. It was during this period that we started hanging out at the Round Table, a neighborhood bar, whenever I was home. I was a serious little barfly too. I told Armstead no sitting at the tables. I wanted to be right there at the bar, sitting at one of those swivel stools where I could talk to my favorite bartender. Lulu, shut the hell up. I knew people around me were doing more than drinking. We had a huge entourage, not to mention groupies, and drugs were everywhere. There were people who spent all their money on drugs and would come to me for a loan until payday. I gave the money, but first I made them listen to a lecture. Once, when we were in New Orleans working with Alan Toussaint on one of his epic albums, I caused a major commotion when I walked in on some people sitting around a table doing the boogity sugary. She said she walked in, you know them Geminis, they don't have no sense, they don't know no better. She said she walked in, saw the table with all the boogity sugary on it, and flipped the little table over. Y'all are stupid. She said the people were pissed at her, but instead of jumping in her face, they jumped on the floor and tried to sniff it up off the carpet. I don't want nothing like that. I don't want to deal. Do you know what's in this carpet? More and more, I was feeling left out. Like there was one long party going on and I wasn't invited. It was more than the constant drugging scene. Sarah, Nona, and I were singing together as always, but our personal lives had gone in completely different directions. For one thing, Sarah, Nona, and Vicky all lived in New York City, while home for me was a quiet neighborhood in Philly. For another, all three of them were single and childless, while I had a husband and a young son. In March of 1975, when we returned from a triumphant tour of London, Paris, Madrid, and a few other European cities, Lady Marmalade was the #1 single in America. The same month, when we were performing at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, we got the surprise of our lives. Not only did the stars turn out to see us, Martha Reeves, Ryan Ann Tatum O'Neal, the late Rosalind Cash, to name a few, but so did two very special men from my past. Otis Williams, who looked like he hadn't aged a day since I last saw him, was there, and so was the surprise of the night, my old friend, Reggie Dwight, now known the world over as the fabulous Elton John. The months later, in May, LaBelle had another high point when we did a week at the Harkness Theater, the highbrow venue on Broadway, usually reserved for ballet. We were the first rock group to perform there, and what a performance it was. 3 months later, on August 9th, we returned to the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium for the wildly watched Rock Music Awards. In 1975, the Rock Awards was as big as the Grammys or the American Music Awards are today. Co-hosted by Diana Ross and Elton John, it was carried live by CBS. We were nominated in 4 categories when Lady Marmalade won for the Best R&B Single. I don't think any of us could believe how far we had come. Unfortunately, the good times were becoming fewer and farther between and would not be enough to sustain us. In the end, there would be nothing that could hold the dream together and keep it from becoming a nightmare.
I said right on the south side, Made a left on MLK. What a I made a left on MLK. Oh, what a beautiful day, what a beautiful day. Taking a ride.